And I think that to understand what my students, what I called the Mexican War, but my students now call the Mexican-American War, the terminology has been changing over these years. One has to understand the role of Texas in causing this conflict and becoming a part of it. This is Mexico in 1821. So in 1836, what we see is that the Texans declare their independence. So 1835-36, we had this short war between the Anglo-Texans and Mexico that ends in something of a stalemate. But in fact, Texas gets de facto independence, American recognition, and it is a tiny little country to be the Republic of Texas. And all of this sets the stage for conflict. So this is the Republic of Texas, a tiny little country that is searching for its place in the world. And does some negotiations with England, does some negotiations with the U.S., but Mexico makes it clear that any step to incorporate, to make a treaty with the Republic of Texas and incorporate it into the U.S. is going to mean serious hostilities, serious war. As things drag on in the Democratic Party, they choose a dark horse. James K. Polk from Tennessee, a guy who's often called Young Hickory because he had been a political protege of Andrew Jackson. April, the Treaty of Annexation was submitted to the Senate. Here it's defeated. You see the lopsided vote. It couldn't even get a majority vote, much less a two-thirds. Then in the fall of 1844, we have Clay versus Polk. It's a squeaker of a race, but Polk pulls it out in the end. So what we have is this treaty is put to both houses of Congress to gain a majority. And that it does. It squeaks through with a majority in February, and President Tyler signs this joint resolution of Congress annexing Texas. The striped part is what Texas thinks is Texas, Mexico thinks is Mexico, and the green part is what everyone agrees is Mexico. So we have a war with Mexico declared over this fighting. So here we have the battles of Palo Alto and Resaca taking place right away, really at almost the moment war is declared. The U.S. declares war on Mexico. Mexico doesn't, I'm not sure they ever get around to declaring war. That but there is fighting going on. Now this is obviously a very different situation than either the American Revolution or the War of 1812. In both cases, America was trying to avoid war, and war came. In Congress, say, what are we doing? This is Mr. Polk's war. Why is he doing this? This is outrageous. Some New Englanders think they should not pay their taxes to protest the war. Henry David Thoreau of Walden Pond gets thrown in jail for tax protest. His buddy Ralph Waldo Emerson goes to visit him and says, "David, what are you doing here?" And he says, "Waldo, why aren't you here?" so it's a war that really gives a lot of dissent. So here I'm calling this gridlock. It doesn't look like gridlock, but in some ways, this war that started out lightning quick, and even early into 47, Taylor is winning over Santana at Buena Vista. General Scott does this incredible amphibious landing at Veracruz and goes on the next month to win an important battle at Cerro Gordo outside Mexico City, but he really has to claw his way into Mexico City. And he does so in September 1847. Santa Anna, who's been commander of the army and of president of Mexico, resigns the presidency. He doesn't resign from the army. But, okay, in some ways it seems like, hey, America is cutting, the American army is cutting through Mexico like a knife through butter, right? But, in fact, the Mexicans are not negotiating. This is the problem. As the U.S. is occupying Mexico City, the ports, is collecting the tariffs. Mexico is basically practically in receivership. But, in fact, the negotiations aren't going anywhere. Polk sends word to Trist to come home in October because Trist has not made enough progress, and Polk has also sort of rethought what he wants from Mexico. He's decided he wants Baja California. Trist, however, he's down there in Mexico City. He stays there. He simply ignores the presidential summons, keeps on negotiating, and of course you can imagine what the political scene is like here late in 1847. Trist, however, keeps on negotiating and comes up in 1848 with what you guys learned about in school as the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo, which we pay $15 million to Mexico for almost 1/2 of Mexico. And the proportion of deaths from disease is only about 1,300 of those deaths are from battle wounds or killed in battle. So it's close to 90% of the deaths are from disease.